Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Strong Draws. My name is Brett Strong, and today I thought I'd get back to doing some tutorials. It's been a while since I've done one. I'm sorry about the wait, but I've been kind of busy lately. Last time we covered the head, so today I thought we'd kind of cover the torso, the male and female torso. And for you though, oh excuse me, for those of you who haven't seen any of my other videos, most of this is going to be comic book anatomy and related because that's kind of what I do. So we're gonna do the male and female torso. Again, kind of like the last video, I haven't really prepared anything. Just gonna kind of go through, show you what I do, and kind of talk my way through it, and just kind of try and break it down for you guys. So hopefully you can learn some stuff. So first we'll start off with the male torso here. Now the way I usually do it is I'll start with this circle here, which will represent kind of the upper mid cage area. We'll come down for the waist area, and then I'll generally do kind of this cylinder kind of thing for the pelvis area. Now, even though this is kind of how I start things, just because it's easier for me to think about how if when I'm need to move it around, it just a ball and a couple cylinders kind of makes more sense to me. So we'll divide it in half, kind of come across for the shoulder line here, and then about 3/4 the way, or halfway through this circle, be where our pecs will go. And then there's this upper rib cage area. Jim Lee kind of really exaggerates this, and I think kind of made it more prominent than most artists. Then we'll divide this kind of in half here, and those will be where the abs are going to go. And so kind of from here, what I'll do is we'll round out where the shoulders are going to go. Generally, I'll start with a circle, and then I'll flatten it out and make kind of a half or a 3/4 circle, I guess you could call it here. And I'll show you why I do this here in a little bit. And then from where this point here where they meet, I'll come up to about 45 degrees, and that'll be where the pecs are cut off. Come down 45 degrees, that's where the rib cage will meet. Come down and over, got your lat muscles there. Come down and out just a bit, and that's where your hips are going to, the hip bones would be pretty much. You got your belly button, and then come up and you got your trapezoids, I think they're called. I'm not going to cover arms in this one. We'll go over that in the next video, which I think I'm going to do arms in the next one. Excuse me, I needed a drink there. So at this point, take my eraser, lighten it all up a little bit here. Alright, and then we'll go back to my pencil brush tool here. And I usually either start with the collarbone or the pec muscles. So for a collarbone, you just get a U shape, kind of make a bump up here, and it comes up or comes pretty much straight across, meet your shoulders right there. And the pecs, you'll start on either side of that center line. And I come down and then back up like this, because that's really how your muscles form. You'll see a lot of guys come straight across. It just doesn't look right to me. But what I will do is I'll add this line here, and that's basically a shadow line. So anything under here is going to be in shadow. And if you want, you can go in, depending on how defined you want to make them, you can go in. And some people will just make one center line to separate them. You can, if you want to make it a little bit more interesting looking, you can separate them just a little bit like that. And then take this line over for the shoulders. Come back up, follow those lines. Then you add your shoulder muscles in. Now it's good to do some life drawing and look at reference when you're learning to do this stuff, because you'll see how the muscles kind of are underneath your body, underneath your skin, and that'll help greatly with your how your musculature wraps and moves and whatnot, and how much you want to put in, how much you don't want to put in. Again, that's just preference on it to everybody, who how much musculature and lineage you want to put into it. So from the peaks of these pec muscles, I'll come down, curve this, and that'll be, like I said, the upper rib cage area. We'll come down from the lats. Again, out from for the hips here. And then if you draw in your crotch area, it comes from pretty much right there. It kind of curves back in. Let me erase that out a bit. There we go. Alright, now for the abs, everybody does abs a little bit differently. The only thing, like, I don't generally, if it's a standing figure straight up and down, I don't generally put abs in too much anymore. And again, abs are always shaped a little bit differently on everybody, so you can kind of do what you want. But again, look up reference. All I can say for sure is don't make more than 6, because your abdomen does not have more. I've seen some guys do up to 12 ab muscles, or 8 is generally what people seem to think, because you do have muscles here, but you never really see them. So never do more than 6, in my opinion, if you're going to do them. Otherwise, you kind of get a little bit goofy looking figures, in my opinion. And then if you want to do obliques, they just kind of follow here and then down like so. Now everybody has a favorite. It's kind of weird. Everybody has kind of their favorite muscle groups and stuff they like to draw. So I mean, like I said, generally I don't put too many abs in my characters much anymore, unless they're in certain poses. And I'll kind of explain why that is a little bit in here in a little bit. So there's basically your male muscular superhero chest, abdomen area. Now if you wanted to do it from the side, again, you just kind of start with this ball. Circle for where your shoulder's going to be made. There we go. Come down for the abdomen area. Come out for where his butt's going to be. And this is where his leg would hinge in there. Now, what you need to keep in mind also when you're drawing is the pitch of your upper abdomen, your chest area, and your pelvis area are going to pretty much always going to be at opposite angles, like that. So from a straight on point of view, it doesn't really do too much. But when you get into moving the figure around in poses and whatnot, that's where it's really going to come in handy to help get your figures looking correct. And as you'll see, I'm just basically doing exactly what I did on the other side, just from a different angle. So let me erase this down. Got my brush. Alright, so you got your collarbone here, coming down to your chest and pecs here. Get that shadow line. You don't always have to put that shadow line in, but I don't know, I seem to quite a bit anymore. Bottom of your shoulder, shoulder muscle there, upper rib cage, abs, groin, lats, back, butt. With men, you can kind of keep this a little more squared off and a little more a little more rough edges and straight edges because they tend to be a little bit harsher lines on men than they do on women, so you can really get away with almost just doing everything as right angles. And that's all depending on how you like to draw. I mean, you can round it off, you don't have to do that, but this is where his neck will go, and then here's his trapezoids. And so there's and just a little bit of definition here for the abs if you want. And so there you got the male kind of from the side, and depending on how big you make him, and you know, if you're drawing the Hulk, he won't be quite as thin this way. Might be a little wider up here, bigger shoulders, whatever. This is just kind of, if this was Superman, like you could easily just throw on the diamond and the cape, and you kind of got Superman. Like I said, I won't deal with arms at this moment, so we'll do that in the next video probably. Sorry, I need a drink again there. Alright, so there's basically the male torso from the front, from the side. We could do it from the back if you want, I guess, here. I'll show you kind of how the back would look. We don't really see the backs of characters too much, but it's, you know, if you don't know how to do it, people will eventually call you on it. So it's good to know. And you pretty much just break it down like you would as if you're drawing him from the front, but it's just kind of basically the musculature is just going to change a little bit. Well, not a little bit, it's completely different on the back than it is on the front. But since, you know, these muscles are all kind of designed to work together and help, you know, so that you can move in the way that you do, there is a kind of a symmetry to the front and the back. So erase that down. So we'll start with the shoulder here. Get it right here. Alright, so you got the shoulder. Traps are going to come up like this. And again, there's so many muscles of the back. It is kind of, again, just kind of study it. See what muscles kind of pop out to you. And, you know, kind of just experiment. See which ones, when you draw them, they look right. When you know, when you leave some, because I mean, some people will draw every single muscle, and that's fine. Like I said, since I do comics, sometimes you have to figure out a way to interpret this stuff so you don't have to spend time drawing every single muscle. So, and like I said, I don't get to draw back musculature too much because generally the guys have capes, or more often they're just wearing clothes, so you don't really see much of this. But for the most part, that's kind of how the back kind of is put together for the most part. It's something I could probably brush up on a little bit more, but like I said, generally you don't see this stuff quite as much, just because again, people, they wear capes, or it seems like they either have capes or trench coats, or they're just wearing normal clothes. So, but it's good to know how to do, and every time I do have to do this for a page or a finalized drawing, I will look at some reference just to make sure I'm where I want to be with it. So now I guess we'll move on to the female. I'm going to try and keep this around a half an hour video, if not shorter, so maybe a little bit longer, but I'm going to try and keep it as short as I can. So with the woman, again, I'll start basically the same way. Got the ball for the chest area. Come down to for the waist here, and then come out with this kind of cylinder thing for the hips and groin area. You can break it up exactly, pretty much just like you would for a guy, just everything's just a little bit smaller. There are a few obvious differences to drawing women. They're generally not as big, not as muscular. unless you're drawing something like She-Hulk or something. So from here, oh, I got that I went a little too far. There we go. So with a woman, generally, instead of starting with the collarbone, I'll start with where her lats are going to go, and then out to her hips. We can get this nice kind of hourglass figure for the most part. Now, I don't generally tend to draw my women, too skinny or too thick. Just kind of every guy and every woman, I guess, everybody has their own ideal version of what a woman is, or what a beautiful woman looks like. So everybody kind of changes just a little bit. So here we got her rib cage. So basically, I kind of just draw the women I would find attractive, I guess, and that might not be necessarily what you guys like or girls like out there, but it's all up to you what you find attractive. Same with the guys. Like I said, I don't necessarily draw abs too much for the most part because I don't think it's necessary. But some people like that, so more power to you if that's how you draw them. So get the shoulders in here. Again, the shoulders aren't quite as big or angular. Got the collarbone. Now with the collarbone, men go straight across. Women's actually kind of come in at about 45-degree angle or so. And the same thing, like when you're standing, men's shoulders are going to go straight across from their neck. So let's see if we're going to come up and put his neck in here, he's pretty much straight across like this. Women, for the most, again, are going to, if you put her neck in here, they're going to kind of come down at a 45-degree angle. They're not quite as straight and solid looking, I guess you could say. Now that's just a general rule of thumb. It all kind of depends on the character you're drawing. So her shoulders are not looking. Now for the breast, a lot of people like to draw them up here for some reason, and I think that's because of the way men's pecs sit. But actually, since they are sacks of fat, essentially, they do have some weight and they hang down, so they're actually a little bit lower than most people think they are. And depending on size and clothing and build of the character, they could, they may sit a little higher depending on what they're wearing. They may sag a little lower depending on the size of them. So just always be aware of what your characters are wearing. And remember that this all has mass to it. Mass and weight. So they're actually sagging down. A good way to kind of figure it out is these will, if you go from the point of the collarbone about 45 degrees, that's where the woman's nipples would essentially lie, and that's where your breasts are going to go. So, alright, so there's the female torso. It's a little bit simpler than the man's for the abdomen. Women, I don't think I've ever drawn abs onto. I know there are some people that do. Again, short of maybe She-Hulk, very rarely will I come in here and do this thing. I just don't find it attractive. It's just not my thing. If that's what you like, again, more power to you. Go for it. But for me, it just doesn't read as sexy to me. So, all right, and then the woman from the side. Start with the circle again. Come down. Now with the man, I came straight down for the abdomen area. For a woman, I'm going to curve it just because it's just a little bit more appealing. Come out for her butt. Add in where her shoulder's going to be, where her breasts are going to go, where her lats are going to go. Alright, erase this down. And when drawing a woman from the side, you got your collarbone and you're drawing the breast. When you come back around, there is going to be this line here because they are sagging. Like I said, they're just sacks of fat, so they're just mass, so they're just kind of hanging here over top of the body. And you got her abdomen here, her torso, coming out for the butt. Honestly, I don't really draw a lot of characters in direct profile like this, so this is actually a little bit tougher for me than it probably should be. And there you go. And remember, these go at different angles. Always keep that in mind. Alright, and this is kind of where her traps would go, and then her neck. So there you go from the side. Again, with women, the less line work you use, the more attractive they're going to kind of be. Because, excuse me, I think I heard something along the lines of every line you put on a woman, especially their face, adds about 10 years. So, just like the face, you want to keep their body a little bit simpler in line work. So here we kind of work on the back part of her here. And women always generally always have wider hips than men. And again, there's some guys and gals out there that will really exaggerate the hip and breast area. So for me, it's just not something I do. So I try to keep them almost somewhat realistic to an extent, at least in proportion overall. Sometimes I'll bend that rule depending on, again, I think it all comes down to your character. What you want your character to read. Generally, if your character is evil or seductive or sultry in some way, you're going to really exaggerate the skinny waist, the big butt, the big breasts. If you just got an everyday character like your heroine or something, you're not going to necessarily want to exaggerate that stuff quite so much. Again, and these are, you take this all with a grain of salt. I mean, you got characters like Lady Death and you know, She-Hulk, and I keep coming back to her, or Black Cat and from Spider-Man. These are all heroine characters, Catwoman, that are, well, Catwoman's kind of an anti-hero, but they're all, you know, exaggerated to be pleasing. But again, it's all taste and stuff. As long as you, excuse me, as long as you understand kind of the basics of this stuff and this stuff, you can make anybody bigger, smaller, skinnier. It just all kind of comes down to the basics of knowing where your chest, your abs, your lats, and your shoulders, and all this kind of lie within everybody. So, all right. So those are just your basic, breakdowns of the torso. Now I'm going to give you a few pointers to keep in mind for when you're starting to move these characters around and do posing and whatnot. Actually, instead of redrawing, I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to grab a red. On men and women, it's easier to kind of tell on men. When you're drawing the chest and you're trying to figure out how to connect the chest to your shoulders or your whatever, there's something called a lazy W, and that's this right here. This line this will always connect these 3-4 areas, and it's even on women too, because you got this lazy W area. So, say you're drawing a guy. We'll go back to gray here. Say we got Superman here. And I did a pose kind of like this not too long ago. And say his arms are coming out like this. Or, you know, maybe he's maybe he's flexing. You got a bodybuilder and he's flexing like this. Now here's the frustrating part of drawing any part of anatomy is as soon as you move his arms from hanging down like this to up like this, pretty much everything changes. Then you have to learn how those muscles move and interact with each other. So this takes a lot of study and a lot of time and a lot of practice to get this all down. So see, he's got his arms up. You know, hey, look at me, I got a lot of muscle. Here's where that, you know, his lats will sit in here. Shoulders will come up actually higher. You got these big biceps here. Now here's where the lazy W that I'm talking about. When you want to get the pecs in here, they're going to start from where your shoulder and bicep meet. And it's going to come down and then back up. Down and back up. It's always going to meet right there on your arms and shoulders. See, so again, you got this lazy W right here. Always, always, always going to be there. So then you guys, these traps are going to be huge. I'm going to make him Batman with these huge traps, I guess. Okay. His abs. And another thing is, if you're trying to figure out how far down to bring the lats, if you come from this rib cage area here, from where the peaks would be, if you come down again about 45-degree angle, that's usually a pretty good place for a big muscular guy's lats are going to meet where his chest are. And so again, you got this area here. This is pointing upwards, which means his pelvis is going to be pointing downwards. Alright, so we'll erase this down and we'll get some detail in here. And again, I'll cover arms a little bit more in the next episode. Oh, my computer's kind of freezing up here. If this takes too long, I'll cut this part out, but it's just kind of frozen here. Alright guys, I'm back. It finally caught up with me there, so we'll zoom in here just a tad bit more. Maybe too much there. Okay, here we go. So we'll just kind of detail this guy out just a little bit. Just kind of show you what I got going on here. Hey, hey, look at me. Alright, got his big neck in here. So his traps will be a little bit higher. And now usually, like I say, in his collarbone will go straight across, but since he's reared back and his shoulders are kind of set back, this is going to come up here like this, just because his chest is pushing it that way. And get his shoulders in here. And this is the other thing, kind of like what I was talking about. Usually your shoulder, I'll kind of cover, again, I'll cover that in the next video. Alright, so we come down to this lazy W here. Here's that line that I was doing earlier that separates the pecs from the shoulders. triceps in here. And his hands. Again, hands I'll cover in another video as well. So here we come down for his lat muscles here. Come up to where they're going to connect. And now, the reason I don't generally draw abs too much in this scenario is because when you're standing up and back kind of like he is, your muscles are stretched out, so they're not, in this kind of pose we got here, his abs aren't flexed, so you won't really see them too much. So generally I'll just make kind of a line and just kind of the general area of where his abs would be rather than each individual ab. Come down, there's his groin. Like I said, if you want to throw in kind of his obliques here, you can. And there you, and that's kind of how the muscles would of his chest. Like I said, his chest is, instead of being straight across, they're actually coming up and back this way, because this part of his chest is facing upward. So if you were gonna put these circles in and you're lighting it, all under here is going to be shade, and this would all be light because this is being blocked. Excuse me. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. If there's any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll kind of try to explain a little bit further. But since, like I said, every time you move from just a standing pose, the muscles change and move in different ways. So his chest isn't, I mean, I didn't pull him back too far, but they're not as close together as they would be if he was standing straight. So, kind of like I was saying, depending on how you draw people, you're going to see different muscles. So if I was going to draw, trying to think of a pose here, draw, I don't know, like Spider-Man or something. I'll actually move this down just a bit. Spider-Man wouldn't be quite as big, but he's got his arms coming back like this, kind of like he's flying or soaring through the sky. He's got his head here. Come down. This would be where his rib cage would be, his lats, his collarbone, his back, then his abs here. Got his waist, and his groin. And when you're drawing, figures from a different angle, you can, it makes it easier to think of them as blocks. So if you have someone in a 3/4 kind of view like this, say this is our guy, there's his shoulder. It's a little bit easier to think of in this blocky shapes, because then you can kind of see a little bit easier what areas are going to be facing towards you and which areas are going to be facing away from you. So something kind of like that. So you can see where I'm doing here with like this line, these lines here, as I'm distinguishing this is his front, this is his side. So we'll have these coming up. Again, you got that. Come up to his arms. I'm doing this all pretty quick, so there's going to be a little bit of inconsistency probably that would generally sit and work out a little bit better. Let's say his legs are coming out like this. Alright, so we erase this down. Make this a little bit smaller so I maybe won't lag quite as bad this time. Okay. So you got Spidey's head here. And eventually I'll do a video of how to draw all this together and how to put a full figure together. But right now we're just going to kind of focus on the chest here. Chest and abdomen. Alright, so you got his collarbone, which I did not put in there at the right angle. And since, again, his shoulders are being pulled back, instead of being straight across, they're going to come up to this V area, like that. And now, kind of like I was saying with this guy, since his shoulders are so far back, his pecs are going to be pulled away from each other. But you're still going to get this lazy W in here. Always remember that. I mean, that's always, always, always there. And now, since he is down, kind of crouched in this position, when you do, when you're crunched over like that, or when you're folded in half at this part of your body, that's done because your abs are flexing. So in here I would actually probably go in there and put all the definition of the ab muscles. But just like I said, just because he's bent over, crouched, if you will, into that position, his abs are going to be more flexed and visible at that angle than if he was standing like this guy here, or even this guy here. So again, so that's, I mean, and all this kind of applies to women. Like I said, the hardest part of probably drawing a woman is getting the breasts to look right from different angles because of the way they hang. So you want to draw kind of like maybe we're looking down like this. I'll show you kind of a way I will figure out how to put the breast in at certain angles. It seems to be a problem a lot of people have. So say we're drawing her and we're looking kind of down at her, you know, camera's up above, looking down. You got her legs and stuff in here. Sometimes just scratching down lines and figuring this stuff out is almost the easiest way to do this sometimes. And never be afraid to erase. Maybe draw with your eraser more than you do with your pencil sometimes. Do whatever you have to get what the desired results you're looking for. Alright. So again, figure out kind of where the side of her is going to be here. Now this kind of goes into foreshortening and whatnot, which again I'll cover a little bit more in a later video. You got our arm down here and our arm down here. Alright. So at this point, kind of the way, I'll actually erase this down so you can see a little bit better what I'm going to be doing here. It's like I was saying, with men you can be very, do a lot of right edge or 90-degree angles and right edges and sharp lines. When I'm drawing a woman's breast, like I'll figure out where her collarbone is, figure out where her back is, figure out where her center line is, because you always got to keep in mind where that is. And then I'll just draw these pyramid shapes for her breast to start with. Those are actually a little high. So back up here. Draw these kind of pyramid shapes here. And then figure out where her rib cage is. And since we're so far above her, her butt's going to almost look like it's connected to her chest rather than her waist. And that's just due to the angle we're working with here. And again, the side, this is where her shoulder is going to be, and this is where this shoulder is going to be. And then there's her head and her neck. Alright. Arm, leg, leg. Alright. So since I can kind of guess or have kind of an idea of where this stuff is going, because I got these pyramid shapes, you can, you know, grid it out if you want, that's fine. We'll erase this down again, make it even lighter. So we'll draw where her head would go, got her neck. This is going to be her shoulder. And then you just kind of round off these pyramid shapes like that. Because breasts are almost, you know, there's all different shapes and sizes of breasts, but generally speaking, they're kind of a teardrop shape. And again, I'm doing this really quick, so this one does not look right, because the problem with this, what I got going right here right now, is they look like they're being held up by something, when actually they should be hanging down. So a lot of the mass is going to be towards the bottom, not the top of this. Kind of like that. That's pretty close. So you got her collarbone here. That's where her butt would be. So, and again, this is just, a lot of it's just erasing and trying again till you get the desired effect you're looking for. So something kind of like that. But again, you always have that lazy W in there. Always keep that in mind. Alright, so I think that kind of covers everything as far as the abdomen and the chest and torso area in general. Like I said, I think next time I'm going to cover arms. Kind of the way I'm thinking is once I get the whole body broke down, it's like we'll do arms next, then we'll do legs, and then we'll kind of learn how to put it all together, and then once we get that kind of down, then I'll show you guys how to start doing stuff kind of like this here, where we're going to start posing or stuff like this, where we're going to learn how to, well, I'll show you guys how to move characters around and, you know, foreshortening and all that good stuff. But for right now, I think we'll call this one good. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if this was helpful, if there's anything else that I didn't explain fully that you still have questions on. Please leave them in the comments section below, and I will try to answer them as best as possible. Otherwise, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. I got some projects coming up soon. But yeah, I want to say thanks, guys. I hope this helped you out, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one. Bye.